I call to order the Torch Lake Township Special Board Meeting of February 1st, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. The primary purpose of this meeting is to discuss the agenda listed below. Any additional business must be approved by a vote if all members of the board are present. All members are not present, therefore no additional business can be conducted. Is there any public comment? There is no public comment. Any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
All right. Hearing none, I make the motion
There's
to
our
accept the
public.
agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Our item of business is the following. We will discuss all items over $5,000 of the budget. The board has had a little over a week to read the documents so we can handle the process of questions as we have before. The revised package with minor changes were communicated to you on Saturday. The process we followed for reviewing the policies will be followed here. For the public, the board members received the first draft of the budget on Friday, January 21st, 2022. Comments related to any item $5,000 or less needed to be submitted to me in writing by the end of the day, Friday, January 28th. I received one comment from Alan and a number of others from Sharon. Those changes are incorporated in the revised package sent to you on Saturday, January 29th. Therefore, we will not need to discuss any item of $5,000 or less. Each person will have a chance to raise questions related to line items in the budget that are greater than $5,000. Revenue estimates were put together with Sharon and myself, as she is the most experienced here with the revenue side. So we will direct all questions to the expense line items at this time. Both Kevin and Mike have signed off on their respective budgets. Kathy indicated she was fine with whatever we came up with. So as we did in the policy to try to not duplicate commentary, Alan, I would like to start with you looking at the general fund of any item over 5,000 that you would like to discuss.
The only thing I thought, the first one that caught my eye when I'm here, I don't think you have enough in there for board attorney fees.
Can you put your microphone? Thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't think there's enough in there for board attorney fees. I mean, we're hitting already at $25,000, and it seems that we've just more and more need Todd's thoughts and opinion on things, whether it be Todd or somebody else, but generally this is for Todd, this list, this line. 15,000 does not seem like enough. I think you indicate that you thought there'd be fewer general issues anticipated. I don't know if I would believe that. I mean, I don't think I would hang my hat on that. In terms of year after year, it seems that we need more and more help from attorneys. And so I think I would put that back at 25,000 or what our current year to date is anyways.
All right.
My thought, that's a thought. Again,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
only.
that's fine. I mean, that's why we're going through it. I mean, you're correct. We've spent about that amount of money over the last couple of years. So,
Mhm. I
okay.
don't think, yeah.
We'll take your next item.
And you're referring to the attorney township board, right?
Correct. I'm the 101.
Okay.
The other one I noted here too, Bob, oh, I see why you did it now. Okay. I was just talking about Bob Hicks. You put him at $5,000 because that went over our estimate this year already. That's okay. Let's go and keep going. Nothing on payroll. One second. You want to stay with the 101 or? okay,
Yes, we'll
okay,
just
all
do
right,
the
all right.
general fund first.
I also thought that the attorney fee for ZBA was too small, but it's too small for our consideration also, but I thought it was light. A question with regard to, I'm on contract services under 723,803 on the 101 account. Steve Langworthy is still going to be working with us this year?
Yes.
Okay,
Especially
okay.
with the air park still in play.
Okay, okay. I have no more question on that. I didn't understand under the attorney fees for, just down from that one, 723,802.040. What is the recovery from escrow?
Well, what we've set up for activities in the, for like applications, especially things like special use permits. If you'll remember, we passed in the fee schedule for the fees associated with the zoning administrator, that if we needed escrow accounts
Okay,
for reimbursement for legal and consultants.
okay, I understand. I know
We have
exactly what you're
two-
talking about.
two
I know
escrows
exactly what you're talking about.
currently.
Yep, thank you. I'm down at the, I'm on the day park, which we have a total budget of $59,000 plus. What is our general revenue?
Well, right now,
I looked, I couldn't pull it out
yeah,
of
the revenue is on the first page. The very first page down at the bottom, it's 5420. It's under the general fund revenue, Alan, so it would be your first page.
Hang
Page
on a
1
minute.
at the bottom.
Are you on the revenue page?
I'm on the page you gave me. Just a second, I'll find it. Give me a moment.
It's not on the expense page.
No, I know that.
Okay.
I'm on revenues in the sheet that you gave me. Where do I look?
At the very bottom. So the
Very,
first-
very bottom.
It
yeah.
says boat ramp fee, marine launch contract. You see those names?
Okay, 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 okay. So I see. So we bring in $5,000.
Right. Now, part of that, as you read the notes, part of what the park committee wants to do is to take half of these fees that we're collecting
Yep,
in putting them into a reserve for the future use of repairing the boat ramp, which ties into, if you'll remember when we changed some of the fee schedules, that was one of the objectives we were going to do, is set money aside in the reserves to meet those expenses.
yeah,
So
makes
they're,
sense.
they're going to make sure we do it this time.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, that's good. Thank you. The only other one that I wanted to ask about, this is different. Yeah, deals with the millage for the roads, and that's not on 101. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you okay with the general fund?
Capital outlay.
That's it. I'm done. Yep,
You're done?
yep,
Are you comfortable with the capital outlay?
yes. The only thing, again, we're tight on the general fund. And and especially if the road millage doesn't pass, I've got some thoughts on that when we get to it. But I don't see where we can save money right now in terms of what we've committed to. So I don't have a suggestion.
All right, thank you. Sharon, we'll take yours next.
You said you weren't doing the revenue though, right?
Nope.
So that ARPA money, we're not going to talk about that.
Well, the ARPA money, I've put in there just because it was booked this year, and I'm putting in next year, the board will have to make the decision if we pull that money out of the budget, which will increase the number, and use it as a reserve for a rainy day type fund. My opinion is that we should do that. We should not utilize it to cover the shortfall in the operating fund. But that's up to the board.
So it could be in the budget or it could be taken out. That was my question.
Yeah,
But we're not
I
in,
think in your budget, I think you would not see 61,702 in the revenue. In the revised package that I gave you, we did include it both in this year and next year, just so that we could discuss it.
page 1, the revenues.
The working copy that I picked up from my mailbox did not have revenues in it. That's why.
Well, then you can use that first
Yeah, I can
page
use
of the
yours.
revised one.
So you're just, well, I think it's a good idea. We've not spent any of that money.
No, we
And
haven't
it's going to be $120-some thousand. I think it might be helpful.
No,
Put
we haven't
away.
done any reporting on it yet either, so.
Because basically we can use it for about anything. There's very little
Right.
we can't use it for that I know of, based on that stuff I got from you the other day. Okay.
In our cash account right now, I think we've got 900,000 in the general fund. So if we use some of that up to cover the shortfall this year and the shortfall coming up, I think the reality is there hasn't been an increase in the general fund. And costs are going up, and at some point, we're going to have to figure out if there's a change in the tax structure, but we don't have to really do it at this point with that much money in the bank. Understanding that half of that money is utilized between the time period of April and November, when we don't collect any taxes. So our real running balance that we want to look at is roughly 400,000 a year.
I don't have those numbers, but did Amy give you a number as to how much more we're collecting this year?
Yeah, we're up to 304,000. So if you look at your revenue page.
I gave you that sheet, Alan, when you came in the other day.
Let me see.
I'm going to need another copy of that. I can't find mine. No.
The general fund was 304.
Right.
And that's up how much?
Well, last year, our original budget was 281. So, but you have to take the 304s before the Headley adjustment, which is about $6,000 we're estimating.
Well, again, but see, that's only going to reflect the last 24 months of sales. And it's not going to reflect 2021 sales.
Yeah, we really never put the
And
Headley in
that's where
the
the stuff, that's where the
budget.
raise really went up.
No.
But
A lot of
Well, I
uncapping. happened.
reduced it by $6,000.
Okay, then, that may not be good. That may be all right. Because we're going to have sales and they're going to be a lot higher than they have been in the past. Okay,
All right.
I'm good with that.
all right,
All
let's
right.
see.
So Sharon, expenses.
I had a couple of them, the same as Alan.
Yep. The attorney?
No, I
Okay.
didn't have anything there. Everything in that page 1 of the expenses, I didn't have any extra questions. Page 2, I have no questions. Page 3, no questions. Page 4,
What's it start with?
it starts with buildings and grounds, 265.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is that janitorial service, our contract is up in March 31st. And I pointed that out to Bob that Wooten's gave us a new bid of 16,000.
13.
Huh?
13, well, it's 16,000. $13.50 a month.
Yeah, $13.50 a month, which is $16,200 a year. There's an increase of $225 a month.
I think that's what we figured.
So I don't know where the board stands on that.
They bumped it about 20%. So we can go out and look for somebody else. You've got the longest relationship with them. What are your thoughts?
Well, are you satisfied? Things being cleaned and taken care of?
Yeah, we need to pull that contract out because it's 3 years old. So we need to look at that and see exactly on that contract, certain things have been done. And I think it was in your
It's in the
files.
in yours.
In mine, all right.
If you look at what he would do, he doesn't do everything all the time. I mean, the
Right.
cleaning back in the EMS.
He does
for
windows certain times. He
Yeah.
does
example.
shampooing
If any
certain.
of that's not satisfactory, you could look at that and increase that or make sure it's covered or.
We just need to look at that contract again before we
Right.
sign it to make sure things
Mhm.
have been, I mean, the last 2 years, he really hasn't done much. 2 years ago, our building was shut down, so there wasn't nothing done then, hardly at all. And we had a slow start this year too. But the things that I could see that increases that would be for him would be like, he supplies all the toilet paper and that types of things. I think that kind of stuff has gone up. I don't know how much we use per month, but
Well, we'll take a look at the contract.
let's look at the contract because if, I know that the carpet hasn't been shampooed for a while because maybe there was no activity. I don't know if that's the reason or not, but we can look at things like that. So let's pull the contract. That's what I would like to
And I
see.
talked to him about that, asked him, again, we had the floor marked and, again, it was always, whether or not we were happy with what's going on.
So
All right.
I don't have the contract, so it was in your computer, Alan, so Bob should be able to find it, okay?
I think there should
I'll
be,
look for
it's
it.
under sugar and spices, sugar and spices.
No, Wooten's, Janine's.
Janine's Cottages?
Janine Cottage Cleaning.
Yeah, something like that. It's
Yeah.
that, yeah.
All right. All
So
right,
anyway,
board.
there's a potential there of an increase.
Kathy should have that contract also.
You would
She
think.
had a whole file for contracts.
Yep, we'll find it.
Yeah.
But that number then, instead of 14,040 would be 16,200. So you can make that adjustment.
And I'm going to make a note to look at contract.
Yep.
He had put this little teeny tiny, on a little note on my desk that looked like that. That was his contract. So that's all I got. And then I had just a question on wages of the OEO, time used and spent. I did ask Bob, waiting prior to before the meeting, we're sitting here waiting for 2 trustees to come in. So I was just question mark the amount of time, average hours that we needed, but Bob explained it to me, his thoughts. I don't know if there's any thoughts between you guys.
Well, let me just address that so that all I did was I guessed 30 weeks out of 52 weeks would be the time period that he would be used. Winter months, there's not much in the way of activity. There's 2 things that, he would be involved in. It would be working with Sarah on the zoning ordinance enforcement. The other one would be additional time down at the day park, which is what I've segregated out, as the day park committee gave me an estimate of roughly $4,500 for his time in patrolling the day park. Now, there's a couple of things that go along with that. If in fact we decide to go to the community for a police officer, then not this year, but next year, that expense would be covered under the police officer. The incremental time this year will be dependent upon whether or not I can get the Antrim Road Commission to allow us to make that a fire lane down there. It's on hold right now with Bert Thompson. We have an appointment in April, and we're going to run a test run with the boat to see how much space is required to turn that thing around. And we'll put a couple cars along the right-hand side as you look down on the beach, on the right-hand side of that parking, to see if in fact there's enough room to back that boat around. And then there might be a designated area that he would be willing to give us as a fire lane. He and I were down there in this past, in January. We had snow down there, which restricted the size, but he tried backing up his truck and he saw how tight it was. He also saw how big our boat is. It's about 40 feet. And he said that area is very tight to try to turn that around. So we're going to actually test it. And if Bert figures out that we need more space, then the parking down there will have to be monitored very closely during the summer months.
You're talking, how much length more is he thinking of giving us in terms of from the ramp toward 31? We have a certain space in there now.
No,
No.
not the ramp, not at the
No,
day park.
day
This is
park.
the
Nature preserve.
nature
Oh,
preserve.
nature preserve.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of problem there.
Yeah, so
Big
that,
time.
but right now, they have kind of shifted with me. And so we're going to have to continue to work through that. And so if in fact I can get the increased area for the fire lane down there, there will be more monitoring of that space.
So they won't park right on the beach.
Right.
If they're on the beach, we can't get in.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. And I think he got a pretty good feel for that in January. So that's why I've come up with roughly $10,000 for the ordinance enforcement and $4,500 from the day park.
All right.
All right, what else?
Thanks for that.
Now, if they create a fire lane down there, can we give tickets on that fire lane?
We actually passed that, Alan. I'm not
No,
sure
but
if
the
you
county will
remember.
accept it?
Well, the county is not accepting it right at this point, even though I had a meeting with them in December and laid it all out for them. Communication may have gone sideways between the two of us, which is fine. We're working that out. But I'm going to have Bert look at it in April, and we're going to run the test to see what it takes to turn around. He seemed to indicate that we're going to need more space. Now, if you'll remember, as you go down, just as you enter that sandy area there on the right-hand side, the parking begins. What he's trying to do is figure out if he gives us a fire lane on the left-hand side so people can't park on that side. Can the boat and truck go down on the left-hand side, get down past that one area, back up and turn around that way? And then we'd only make that one designated area, no parking on the right-hand side. And then the left-hand side would all be a fire lane. We've passed the fire lane ordinance for that area. So with a $500 fine and towing. So we're all set to execute the plan once we can get Antrim County, because they're saying they own that stretch of roadway all the way to the water. And we'll just have to work with them.
I don't understand why they're making this such a problem. We can't get to the beach. We've had serious water rescues out there.
Well, he required us to go back 15 years to come up with all the fire rescues we've had. And the guys pulled that data together and we sent it to them. There's 40 or I forget, I think somewhere around 40 rescues over the last 15 years with an increase here. What I don't think he really understood is that outside of us, there's no water rescue between Elk Rapids and Charlevoix. And that's fairly critical if you're looking at the time. So he's taken that into consideration and seen what the records were. And I was fortunate that both Kevin and Bob Hawkins were there, or Ted and I think Bob were there with me. So they explained to Bert the seriousness of being able to get in there quickly with our craft. So at this point, again, it's hung up until I get them back here in April. And I think we're going to get some leeway there. It's just a question. I got to get Bert to agree to it. And then I've got to go back to the road commission and ask him to allow us to do it.
Right. There's just some things to iron out. One of the things he said, we can't put our own signs out. That's his roadway. He would be installing the signs, so forth. And
Well, that's what I'm getting at in terms of, we can't, how can we ticket on a county road?
well, those are things we need to iron out. So
Well, they
That's-
can designate it as a fire lane. We can designate it as a fire lane. We can enforce it. The real question becomes, what do we have to do to get from them to allow us to do all of that?
What is the name of the group? The Preserve Group looked at, this is where they wanted the gate, just after the first parking area. They wanted the gate there, so people had to walk to the beach and couldn't park their car there. That ensures that we can turn around.
They're never going to give you that gate. In fact, the reason why,
Well, I don't care about the gate as much as keeping people parking off the beach and keeping them from the beach. That's why only half of a roadway in there, people aren't going to follow that. And then we got to call the sheriff to give a ticket.
Alan, I understand all that. That's why we're in the process of trying to change that. And it's just,
I
it's slow
wonder what his
moving.
problem is. That's what I'm concerned about.
Well,
What's his
what-
problem? There's
well,
40
it's not-
40 residents
Alan,
were life
Alan.
and death.
Alan, it's not Bert's problem. What he's being told is that there were complaints filed at the Antrim County level that we were restricting access to the water. And that's really not the case, because the people that were ticketed, and then we revoked the tickets, the people that were ticketed, we had pictures in which the parking lot was empty and they just went down and parked on the beach.
Well, to the people of Antrim County who received those complaints, did we show them that data?
Well,
That's what I'd want to know. I mean, if we have to talk to the commissioners, we can.
we're working on all the angles.
let's get back to the
So,
budget here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll shut up. It's,
So anyway,
We got
that's,
sidetracked
to
there.
me, that's not a rocket science fix, but it seems to be turning out that way.
We'll get through it. I'm not even sure where we're at.
you were at the OEO.
All right, time. I was trying to get to. I didn't have any questions on that page, so,
What page
the
are you on?
page, now I'm starting with the page that's zoning ordinance, zoning admin 723.
Yep.
I had the same question Alan had, was Langworthy, that's been addressed. Nothing else on that page. And then I was just looking at the improved capital outlay. And I think we've got all these numbers in that our sheriffs of, that we had partial payments made and contracts that are still out there. So all those numbers looked okay to me too. So the only question, I guess, will be when we get to the road road.
Yep. That'll be separate. Jason, your thoughts?
I'm good.
That's what I love about you, Jason. All right, I have a couple. The first one is on page 2, general fund expenditures, the $37,000 for scanning. I'm surprised nobody jumped on that
Oh.
one, but
Well, I didn't know I did make a note of
Where's
it.
that page at?
It's the second page.
I'm
It's
on
the
the second
general
page.
fund expenditures. Well,
Oh, second page of expenditures.
yeah,
Second page, first page of expenditures.
first page is revenue.
Right. I flipped the
All
wrong
right.
page.
So I had Linda and Jenny go through. Did you find it, Alan, before I get started?
Give me what page are you on expenditures?
It would be,
One.
it would be the first
First?
expenditure page,
Got it. Okay.
okay? So as I laid out, Jenny and Linda looked at how much they've accomplished so far this year, how much more they have to accomplish. And in estimating, they said if they had 4 people working the process, 3 of them at the $16 rate, which is the more experienced rate, and a total of 625 hours over 52 weeks, that would be roughly 30,000. And then $14 per hour, which is the minimum rate, which would be our part-time people like
Abigail.
Abigail, yeah. That would be $7,000 over the course of a year. So that's how the 37 came up with. So here's the thing that we need to decide. That work, that 37,000 is significantly higher than the original estimates that we did when we did the resolution or the motion to proceed on scanning. Now, we haven't even hit the records of the ZBA or the Planning Commission. We probably have 20 or 30% left for the zoning administrator, and we haven't hit the assessors. I asked them if in fact this 37,000 would get us through the zoning administrator office, which in my mind is probably the most critical thing. Those are the records that are always perpetual. That would leave the other areas of the accounting, the clerk office, board records, the minutes, things of that sort. Maybe not going through the scanning process, or we will probably be looking at another year of 37,000 to do all the rest or the majority of our remaining records, which are primarily the clerk's office. Now, one of the areas that we could avoid doing is the accounting stuff, the invoices. We could keep the paper copies now and just begin scanning in all of those records as we generate them each month. And that's part of the issues we have right now, is that they are doing the records, but we're generating all these other records and they're not getting in. So this, when Deb and I talked with the prosecutor's office there in Antrim County, they spent 2 years, significant overtime and a lot of expense to get this done. I think that when we were told what it was going to take, it was greatly underestimated. So that being said, we are now at an area that we need to make a decision of how do we want to do our scanning, because we know there's certain records that should be scanned and protected. So that's why I'm saying the 37 this year is meant to take care of the zoning, everything associated with zoning administration. So that's the PC, the ZBA, the assessor, and all of the zoning work. After that, then we can either proceed on some other basis, or maybe we don't proceed with any further scanning because of the expense. So
What's almost done now?
only the zoning administrator's work itself. So those are all the file cabinets on the left-hand side.
That's again, permits, files on that
Yep.
permit.
All the communications, all of that stuff. Now, part of the issue, to be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
is the fact that
Staples.
when we have filed these papers, it's in paper clips, it's stapled, and it's just jammed into a folder. So you pull the stuff out and it can take half an hour to an hour to sort this stuff, clean it up so that then it can be fed into the machine. The actual scanning of itself, it's nothing. But it's all the prep work that's eating up the time. And that's not going to go down. Now, the assessor's records, if you've ever looked at those things, they're as bad as the zoning administrators. I mean, there's folders in there and it's just papers jammed in there. So personally, I think it's going to be a challenge to get that set of records scanned in for $37,000. But it's the task I've given to Jenny and Linda. They've got to do the best they can to do it, but we've got to get them done because those are our permanent records. So that's where the 37,000 has come from.
Well, the whole idea, and again, it's so critical that when you have a property to go back and find out what happened to that property, whatever was there. And I had to go through, I spent 2 days literally going through all the ZBA appeals all the way back to 1983, or was it the permits? I don't forget, because I had to check. Oh, and it had to do with this lawsuit that we had. That's why.
That's why you
I
started
went through
this.
it page by page, looking to see if there had been any exception. And that was critical. I mean, that was critical because in terms of the assessors, those files there, I went to those all the time on a property. And sometimes there was just a piece of paper and there was just exactly what I needed.
Yep.
There was a reference. I mean, the stuff that's in there is generally, it can be very useful. The pictures were very helpful, the older pictures.
So anyway,
I don't know what to tell you. I think it's
Well-
important, but, do we have to do it all in 1 year? I mean,
well, the point is that if we're going to do it, we can stretch it out, reduce the cost, but once again, those are the most critical records that if we ever had a fire, that would not, the results of that would not be good.
well, for example, we could take the property record cards. Those, I think you could find some dividing points and do a set a year. And eventually maybe retire those sets somewhere else in the building, or until they're all done, then retire the whole thing.
You mean the folders?
The folders, yeah,
Right.
the property record card is in the folder.
Or you can pull a property record card off of
Right.
computers
Oh, yeah, you
now.
can find that.
It's the historical
Yeah, I
stuff.
would think if we could spread it out. So then the next one, you have the assessor, and then the appeals, the zoning board of appeals is done?
No, the ZBA and the planning commission, all
That's-
those records are not done.
That's critical too. Because all that history belongs to the property. Those appeals, approved or not approved, belong to the property.
Has Amy looked at what needs to be saved? And because there's some folders in there that some of that stuff is running tapes of other things that are,
Amy has not, but the assessor right now, we're looking at that as the last thing.
okay.
To Alan's point, the PC, the ZBA, and the ZA records are the ones that really
Okay.
are associated with the properties. And those would be the ones that we would get done first, and the assessor records are last. So that would be that's how the priority right now is laid out.
And we didn't, okay.
Well, I think, a way to go, just a thought. Let's say we put $10,000 a year into that project until it's done. And don't go anymore.
Well, you got
That's an option.
employees that are, you're stringing them along, or
Say it again?
you got employees that you're
Oh,
stringing them along, or,
I see you're getting it. Well, I don't know. You have to set a schedule and this is what
The-
we're going to offer and do. And then mark
you
those
know, when it
points.
gets to the point of doing all those property record cards, the files, maybe we could take another look at somebody and say, like the county treasurer's office had all those property record cards. Every single property in the county had a property record card, same folders, types of things. And they just had a company come in and just take them all and just do them like that. So I know we bought this to do it ourselves. So when we get to a certain point of down the road, if we have to do
Maybe that's a thought. Maybe putting that, just the property, those folders out to a bid, we might get a better deal.
Now, remember, guys, when
Yeah.
they do that, all the duplicates and all that stuff, you're going to be
Right,
paying by the
right.
pound. And what's happening now is that as their people go through it, they're getting rid of all the duplications.
Yeah,
So that all you're
That's why I
putting up
say
into the records.
that's
would-
why we bought it
Are
ourselves.
there a lot of duplications?
Well, yeah,
Is there?
especially it's all the communications between the various people. So, and you got all those copies.
Well, that would not be the case though in the folders, property record folders. But it would be true in a ZBA appeal or something like that. The kinds of things you find in those cards are a number of, first, the original assessment, how it was done in the sketches. Then you'll find, there's one time you were using, I forget what that machine was called.
Yeah,
It had the
that's what I
holes
said.
on the
Yeah,
side
that's
and
what I
would spit
said.
it out. That's another assessment that was back in the late 90s. And then pictures often, and sometimes again, the assessor's notes are in there. There was Kim Schmidt's notes in there. So that would need the kind of sorting, in that case that you have in the other case. If they took, there might be a thick file in there here and there, but I think if you look at them generally,
Not everyone's got one that
yeah, they're
thick.
not all that thick, and they could.
Only
I don't
unless
think
you have
it'd
a
be an
lot of
issue if you did
transfers.
some duplicates, but I understand, yeah.
But that's last on the agenda though, right?
What's that?
The assessing card record folders.
Yeah, that would be
Well,
last. So-
unless, well, again, this $37,000, you think this does not upset our budget.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't upset it does not put us in deficit.
Well, it contributes because if you think about it, we were estimating 10,000 and we haven't gone through that much with that
Is that right?
10,000. In fact, if you look, we budgeted 10,000 last year. And I think we're now at, I want to say we're at, let's see. We're at
22.
7,000 right now.
17?
17,000 we should be at. I must have the old, we're at 17,000. Now that doesn't feel right. Hang on.
Well, if we'd hold off doing the assessor's records, I think that would help, but it's up to you. Again, it's important stuff.
Well, we brought the program.
Yeah, we've got the
It wasn't
program, we
cheap.
paid that already, and
We have a maintenance on it annually. We have to keep that up. So we've got to use the scanning. I mean, it's not like, get it done. We don't want dust growing on it when we can,
so these people are depending on working those hours. is what you're
Well,
saying.
that, again, what we have is Linda Woodward, and she has a limited number of hours per week. And then in the summertime, those hours go down because she has family members that come up. And so she's not available all that time. Jenny is in the same boat. And Veronica is another resource that we have. But again, it's not like we have full-time people doing this. It's kind of putting the schedule together. How many hours can you contribute each week? And that's what we get. Now, we can certainly, if you wanted to reduce this amount in the budget, that's fine. We can work towards that. But if in fact we'd accomplish even getting through all the ZA stuff and the ZA and the Planning Commission, we're going to have to increase it. So I went conservative. And if we don't spend all that money, then that, it's thrown back into the kitty.
Well, again, like I said, I don't think the assessors will be as tedious as compared to what the records with regard to the Planning Commission or the ZBA. But maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know, again, how you do it. You're, getting it done. Sorting, I understand that. It's like painting a room, you got to do a lot of pre-stuff before you finally put paint on the wall.
Yeah, the painting's not hard.
Correct.
Well, board, at this point, my recommendation would be, we've got, we have a hole in budget, which is fine. We had one this year. We've worked through it. It's not as big as the actual, or our estimate isn't going to be as big. If we have to, we can always skinny this back during the course of the year if we have to. I will take that as an okay to move forward at 37. Ellen, I would agree with you on the 25,000 for the lawyer. I'm kind of hoping that we don't have as many events, but certainly the planning commission is going to have stuff. The ZBA, I don't think, they've had very little this year, which is why I kind of cut them back. We've started out with only one meeting so far for the ZBA this year. We're just not getting a lot of activity there. So the next item that I have,
Just an aside, the fact that we've got good records on ZBA and what was done keeps us out of court.
it certainly does.
I mean, big time. We had one situation like that this year. We didn't go to court.
Yep. The next one of concern, my concern is the clerk's office. Alan, you had come to me. We've had discussions regarding the clerk's office. So if you will look down under the clerical assistant line 215,703. I've got $2,600 in there, but I put a note over on the right-hand side. The 2,600 is related to Sharon's doing the work on the payroll. Do you have it, Alan?
No, I don't. What page are you on?
It would be the second page of
Second page at the
expenses.
bottom?
Right in the middle.
Oh, clerk, I
The
got you.
clerk's office over on the right-hand side for clerk assistant. I've got
Yeah,
an
gotcha.
explanation of what that is. Here's the thing that we know that the clerk's office is pretty unorganized, that there are issues associated with it. We are not adhering to our recently passed policies for the accounting procedures, which include the purchase orders and reviewing receipts and looking at the expenses versus whatever the budget is. Now, we need to set that up for the next fiscal year. But in order to do that, Kathy doesn't have the experience with the accounting requirements. So all I've done is set up, in case of an issue arises and we have to address the issue, I have estimated that we could have an incremental expense of $8,600 for the year. I did not put it in the budget. That $8,600 would be for 10 hours per week, for 10 weeks, for someone to come in and help straighten out the office and reorganize it, should we need to do that. Then in addition, I was looking at 20 hours per month for an accountant. My estimate is, based on when I was looking at the accounting services before, they were like $70 or $80 an hour. I think we could maybe find someone do it for $30 an hour, but that would add incremental costs, and they would be responsible for handling all of the accounting.
Now, when you talk about that person, are they paying bills? Are they?
They would be paying bills. They would be doing reconciliation of the accounts. They would be going back and making sure things are booked in the appropriate place. And they would be responsible for the aligning of the general ledger. Because right now, as the clerk explained to me, it's up to the individual who's ordering stuff to pick the account. Rita's here. I mean, she has had to review last year the bookings related to the park, and it was all over the board. So I didn't put anything in here at this point, but I'm just advising the board that if necessary, we may have to do some in the clerk's office. And again, Alan, you and I have talked about that. And it's something we will need to address working with Kathy at some point. So that's my concern on that. The next one is the day park.
Now, again, if we change that, we're going to have to pull the money from something. Okay,
Maybe, otherwise, if there's a place to pull it, I don't know where you would pull it from.
that's right. Yeah, it's my first thought.
But again, I think in terms of the accuracy of reports, if it costs us an extra $8,600 on a $2 million budget, I kind of have a problem. It's just not material.
Well, again, I think what we have to think about this year budget-wise is what are we doing this year that we'll plan not to do next year so that there's savings of some kind? We might get a little better on capping next year, possibly. But like I said, we pick up with $30,000 is no big deal. So, okay.
All right, so the next thing is the parks. This goes back to a discussion that we've had a couple of times. We had it during the last budgeting process. The expenses associated with the park are not going to go away. Right now, the expense total, the revised expense total in the new sheet is $65,465. And I'm sorry you guys didn't look at the numbers, but basically Rita corrected my initial input. There was $9,000 that I did not pick up. Of that 65,000, 27,000 of it is related to capital expenditure. That capital expenditure is made up of the item that we approved at the board meeting, I believe either in December or November, which was to redo the road so that we have one entrance to the parking lot and one exit. And that's the 11,600. We were looking at fencing. That fencing would run from the top, I believe, of the parking area down to within 50 feet of the shore. From there, there would be a berm that would be built based on the dirt that was pulled out of the new roadway. That berm would be roughly 4 feet high with plantings on top of it for the cosmetics, if you will, but also to reduce that section because under the ordinance, you can't have a fence going down to 50 feet. Now, in talking with Sarah, the township on their property, in this particular case, for the safety and welfare of the people using the day park, the safety with keeping the kids out, we could allow that fencing to run down to the water or to the edge of the beach, which would be a lot more control. It would be up to the day park committee if they wanted to run the fence or do the berm based on how they want the appearance to be and those types of things. So that's part of what it is. In addition, the camera upgrade for the day park is going to cost roughly $5,000, which are better cameras, if I remember right, Rita? Eight cameras. So part of that is better viewing of, if you will, of who's dumping their boat in, because we're reducing, as you can see, salaries are only $4,500. So we are not going to be monitoring that park with people. So the cameras are going to be critical for us to collect that $10.
Not just dumping the boat, but dumping other things.
Yeah, I mean, we're finding one of the things,
Trash,
yeah,
you mean?
to your, the trash and things of that sort. So one side is capital improvements, the other side is reduction of payroll. But we've got to figure out, if we're not collecting that much money, should we evaluate having some kind of tax to the voters? It would be basically 0.15 mil, which would generate roughly $45,000. We could do a 1 mil that would generate roughly $30,000. So if
A
we
1
can,
mil, not a 1
No,
mil.
or
it's more
0.1.
than- It's more than.
No,
not a
no.
1 mil.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
0.1 or 0.15. Not a big number, but the idea would be that we would have some base of support because the general fund is going to, we've got to run the township. And the park is a drain on that general fund.
Yeah.
Has been. So as a board, one of the things we've got to decide is, do we make that an effort this year and let the voters decide if they're willing to support it to the tune of roughly $30,000 to $45,000 a year in additional tax? Thoughts? Well,
You'd have to make it whatever.
yeah, we could, you could
You can
make
make
it
it 3-year.
5 years, 10 years, whatever you want. But our expenses running it are not going to go down. And
Are you looking at this year to doing it or next year?
no, I would look, if we're going to put stuff on the ballot, because if you don't do it this year,
You gotta wait
then you got to wait 2 more years.
unless there's a school election, but
So board, we have a little time, just like I explained at the board meeting. On the police officer, we have to get our stuff in by mid-April. So we've got a couple of months to kick this thing around. But we need to decide what we're going to do with financing the day park.
and my philosophy is the more voting you put on there, if you put roads has to go on there. You put the park on there and you put police on there. That's a discouragement in my view of seeing as a tax person collecting, some things could go down quicker than they could go up. So you have to be careful. That's all. That's the only thing I have to say. And
Thoughts, Alan?
I do kind of agree with Sharon, but I think these are all things that we have to do. When we did the survey on the park and who uses it, very few people use their park from
Yeah.
our township.
you're right.
And they use it for their boat. Torch Lake people put their boat in and take it out. There's a survey about it and how many times it gets used by locals, and it was quite extensive. So the people what we're supporting is people who do not live in our township to be here. Now, people off the water will say, oh no, we use it. Well, that's true. But there's an awful lot of people that come to the park that don't. And a lot of people off the water don't use it even. So I don't know what kind of support there'd be for a millage for that. But again, that'd be the kind of thing that I would call a meeting, say, let's talk about it. We want to talk about the park, see what people come up with and say. With regard to the police officer, again, I've always been in favor of a police officer just because of all of what I saw happen at the park kind of thing. We have the presence of the police there. It's much more orderly and we can control it a little bit better. But at the same time, we're hiring a police officer to do the park, in which most of our people don't use the park. They use it only for their boat. So,
Yeah, but any misuse of the park is still our liability.
oh, absolutely.
So that part of the idea is mitigating that liability, or at least trying to mitigate it as much as possible. So it's not a real black and white case that is it or isn't it. There's a general understanding there's potential issue, and that's a way that it doesn't get out of hand. But the community, that's why I look at the police officer. It's a community decision. It's hard for us to sit up here and just make that decision. So maybe we do call a special
People want to
meeting,
know, what do we need the police officer for? I mean, they have not,
right?
we don't have.
Well, that's what I explained at the board meeting, that I've got different numbers as to what it takes to run one of these things and what are the requirements. And I've got job descriptions that we could build a job description for it. The township has a right to know, what are you going to use them for? and what's it going to cost? So I'm hopeful that we've got a lot on our plate for March, but we're going to probably have to have something special early April if we're going to get it on the August ballot. Just something to think about,
I think
guys.
if we look 20 years from now, Torch Lake Township will have a police officer. And in terms of the way I'm watching growth happen, I don't know if it's quite where we could fit it into now. I don't know. But
All right.
I'd go, if the community said yes, I'd go along with it.
Well, and that's, the idea is that we're not going to know that unless we put some on the ballot, I guess. That is all I had on the clerk. So if I summarize it, we're keeping the 37,000 for for the wages and scanning. We're going to increase the attorney township board from 15 to 25,000. We are, at this point, we will increase the contract in 265-812 from 14,040 to 16,200, which will be pending review of what the contract is and whether or not we want to bid it out. That's all the changes that I have that we discussed tonight. Is the board comfortable with those changes? Alan,
I'm sorry, say it
are
again.
you comfortable with
Yes.
the changes we
Yes.
made? Jason?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Sharon?
Yep.
All right, we'll move on.
There's more.
Next one is cemetery. Very small, not a lot of numbers, so there's nothing over $5,000. We can move forward. Township Road. We had minimal amount spent this year. That was because the,
Estimates came in lower than,
well, the estimates came in lower, but more, the interim road commission picked up all the bills. I think we only had $13,000 this year. So we have,
the allocation came in good. And then,
yep,
and then what was projected came in a better price. So
so what we,
August is our last collection. This year's the last collection.
December
On this
was our
millage for the
last.
road.
Yeah,
So we would put this on the August election,
we already did that. We already passed that
Right.
resolution.
but we're going to double it now.
1 mil.
Yes.
To 1 mil. And that really covers us for a lot of years. But,
Well,
I mean, we
it
put,
covers it 5 years.
yeah, we put 5 on it, but I mean,
Yep.
that takes care of our roads, definitely.
No, takes care of half. Then we will be back for the second half. If you'll remember, we did, Bill Peterson and I made that pitch to you guys that said we broke all of our roads down based on age, and that our second millage after the 5 years will take care of the next set of aging
That's
roads.
putting a totally replacement.
Yeah, so by the time we get 10 years out, our roads are going to be in a position that they'll be good for 20-some plus years.
now what happens if the millage doesn't pass?
Well, then the roads will be
Gravel
garbage.
roads, baby.
Gravel.
Well, I think that's, again, when I did the first millage, I had no idea what a millage was about and how it would work. And I had Bert Thompson here. We had a hearing. We let a lot of people know we're going to talk about roads. And this many people showed up to talk about roads. So,
Our community has supported road millage. I
well, it
mean,
related to the age of the population. They wanted good roads so the emergency
Yeah.
vehicles could get to
Yeah.
them. That was what, and I didn't realize till after the election. So,
And I put it in the winter bill because on that winter bill, in the newsletter, I should say, the newsletter I did an article in there about roads. This is the last year of this voted millage for this, and advised that the next one will be coming on the next election to continue road up, So if you were to look at that And then come this summer, I'll have something else in there with roads and we just need to inform people. And then it'll be in the connection along the way.
Constant contact.
Well, if you fix all of your roads and you start brand new, and you're saying 27 years, did you say?
Well, 25 to 30 years is the life. And so what we're doing is the worst roads, which are 25 to 35 years, are fixed in the next 5 years. Those second tier roads are now going to be up to the 25 year because again, you're staggering those 5 years so that by the time we get through the 10 years, our roads should be good for at least 20 plus years.
So what does that mean with regard to millage after that then?
We can decide in 10, 20 years
We'll
from
let
now.
that board
Well,
worry
that's the thing,
about
we
it.
forget about what the plan was, and people leave and are not here, and we forget exactly what the plan was, and the question is whether the plan worked.
There are some townships that had one mill
Forever.
forever. They won't get rid of it because they're fearful of getting it back. So they've never, ever lowered it. And some of their road fund millage is higher than their general fund budgets.
Yeah, I know.
I think we can be confident we need this millage
Well-
for the first 5 years. And in 3 or 4 years, we'll then look and say, okay, how are we doing?
Well, the first millage, we had the quarter mill millage. We had certain roads we had projects on, and then the next millage, that renewal, we finished those roads before. So that year of that, we reduced or eliminated that road totally on the bill. So people knew that we were not taking advantage of them. We eliminated it. So it was, yeah.
Well, I would just recommend that we put up a plan and we give it to people to look at.
I don't have any qualms. So I just
Alan.
brought it up because the worst comes to worst, if we had to use some of the ARPA money, if we had to go that route, if something didn't pass, that's a fallback too.
My only point, board, is that we already had agreement on the resolution to put the millage on the
Well,
ballot.
again, I have no problem with that, but you now have a campaign to deal with.
That's fine. We'll worry about that campaign. But for this particular item, that's why I put in red that if the millage were to fail, we would not have enough money. The ARPA is a way that we could cover that. But I just wanted to point out that based on what we will collect and the carryover, we'll be short about 50,000, which is
Yeah.
what is part of the deficit that I'm showing below.
We're good.
Okay?
Mhm.
Ellen, you okay?
Yeah, it is what it is.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, the next item is the fire fund. The overall number is basically a small surplus. And that will include, there's a couple of things here I'd like to point out. I put an estimated total year for 21, 22. It's in like the second column from the left. And they've only spent roughly $19,000. Now, I think there's a couple of bills for fire hoses that haven't hit the books yet. But I've told Kevin to go out and get his air packs because that was part of the budget that we set up. Now, the other part of that budget was $15,000 for the replacement of the water tank. And it was determined we weren't going to do that. Remember, it's up there somewhere on, is it Coleman Road? Is that it? And it was in such terrible shape, it was determined we're not going to fix that. Bill made that call, and that we're not going to spend that money. So I told Kevin to use those funds to get us more of the air packs because we have insufficient air packs and they're old. And with all the new construction and stuff and the new materials, we've got to protect our guys. So I told him to do it. So in the estimate, I've got the full 90,000 being spent. And you can see that secondarily for next year, we have turnout gear, which is 34,000. air packs for 36,000 and miscellaneous for 15. So we're going to spend the 85. The nice thing is generally the other expenses, I've got some 4% increases in there. The salaries are pretty close to staying the same. We went through the salaries the other night, so does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay,
They've been talking about a truck. We don't have any monies put aside, so in that 15,000 or something put aside for contingency on a truck type of thing?
we can set up a reserve or it just sits in the fund.
Right, that's what I mean. So it's something that they don't have to spend because they've been talking about a truck. So in order to get it some kind of a truck, we need down payments, so.
Well, what I would say is if they come in at a $30,000 savings, and if in fact, I think my best estimate right now is a $33,000 savings this year. I mean, if the board wanted to do that, we could start that contingency starting with this year's surplus. And we could build a nice little surplus for a truck.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay. So then,
Maybe all the 30 you would recommend?
Whatever,
whatever we
Start
save,
something.
yeah,
well, whatever we save this year, we only have 2 more months. Whatever we save this year, we can put that money aside and start a reserve, take it right out of the fund balance and put it on the balance sheet as a
or
reserve.
just put it into, we always had a line item that said, like the ambulance we had, and give it the number, and that money wasn't spent, it was carried over.
It was
year
under
after
capital
year.
expenses. Yeah, that kitty. We
Yes.
changed- I
Yeah,
don't know
but
if we
what did
changed
you
that.
do with the cash? You left it in the fund balance.
Yeah, you
Just
left it
kept
in
it
the fund
there, yeah.
balance.
And what I'm saying is,
Right.
I want to put it in a reserve and hide it from the fund balance so that instead of you thinking you have 200 or 300,000, that 30,000 is put away and you don't start counting it somewhere.
That makes sense.
All right. If there's no other questions on that, is everybody comfortable with the presentation for the fire? Excellent, thank you. Next will be the ambulance fund. Any questions on that? I will point out on the same column on the left-hand side, the second column that talks about the estimated total year, we're at $87,000 for fees collections through January. Again, as Mike explained at the board meeting, that's all part of our ALS services.
That's up to this January you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Well, I just received in monies today for January's run fees, and it was almost 9,000, just shy of $9,000.
okay. So I've got an estimate for this year of 100. We backed that down to 70,000 for next year because part of this year's numbers were related to the catch-up from 2020 fiscal year because the billing wasn't being done, we weren't getting reimbursed. So I thought on a conservative basis, that 100 really has a portion of another year, and I don't want to double count that into the next year. So that's why we've set it at 70. Just in case you guys noticed that, I wanted to explain it. Sharon?
So, did you look at this TED thing you had? I didn't-
Yes, that's why I moved. It was originally 15,000,
Right,
and that was the estimate we originally had in the pitch. And that's what I picked up. The actual calculation comes out to 17,368.
and how did you figure that compared to what I had?
It was the 2265 minus 31. And you take that and multiply it by 80 times 26. So if you take the 31 less 2265, that's 835 times 80 hours times 26 weeks.
So the 2265 calculates to the
The 17 plus the 525.
okay. That's not the way I was, like I said, figuring it.
I know. But it wasn't 15. That was your point. It was a little light, so I went back and did the actual calculation.
Okay.
So we're at 17,328. You were at, I think, 28,000 or something. There was no way that was right. We weren't, because 28 just on his base would have put him in the 70s.
Right.
And at this total right now, he's in somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 roughly.
So I'm going to talk to you and look at that again.
That's fine. Alan, any questions
No.
on ambulance?
No,
So you calculated the pension, everything accordingly then
Yep.
after those changes then that
Yep.
and that, is that right? Mike Bertram's, oh, that's professional fees. Never mind, that's professional fees.
Right,
He's
that's
not
his
in there.
contract.
Is that part of his contract in there?
Yeah, it's 60, it's only his contract.
Well, no, it wasn't. Um,
It was TAA. It was strictly TAA before. He is under professional fees / TAA because the expenses incurred in 21, 22 was all TAA related.
Okay, then at 16, isn't he 1,600?
Yeah, 1,600 times 12.
Is 16,
I don't think so.
this calculator not working? 1,600.
Times 12.
Oh, I don't know what I had in there.
Bob's a numbers guy.
Well, I am too, but I must have had something in there.
Okay.
Because we looked at the account number. I know we looked at that before.
All right. Anything else?
And then again, contingency fund, there probably won't be anything for an ambulance type of thing in there then. There's not much of a
No.
wiggle room in there.
No. No. No, I've got it estimated to be basically break even this year and a small deficit next year. I really think though that my 70,000 is probably light. The population is changing, as we know. We're getting more people moving up here full time. And so I've got to believe that we're going to be up in the $80,000 range, but 70 is conservative.
So somewhere down the line, we always said once we hit paramedic level, that millage rate would probably increase to minimum 2 mills. That
Well-
would be an adjustment. I mean, we have that option.
Yeah,
Next
we've
year,
got the
whatever.
option. Let's see. I mean, there's things in here. There's not a lot that you can manage. I mean, in the ambulance, your hours are set. It's not like it's
Right.
variable.
Right.
It's almost like a direct cost at this point. And so you've got that is fixed, and then all your benefits are fixed, and that's over 50% of your costs.
See, a lot of the revenues that we had was a pickup from from the year prior, back.
That's what I said.
Yeah, and I know you said that, and so we can't, years down the road, count on that grandeur extra.
That's why I only got 70 in there,
Yeah,
Sharon.
I know it. I know.
All right, then, everyone agreed, we move forward as presented for the ambulance. Thank you.
Good with it?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to him about one thing later on the
She's going to
side
arm
there.
wrestle me on my calculation, but I'm pretty confident with it.
She might win.
Well, it did change from my original.
Yes, it did.
Mhm.
I went back and recalculated it. The next items are all way too small, folks. We've got the liquor enforcement, the parks. The park is basically $7,000, $5,000 that will be coming from them. And I've got an incremental $2,000 of contingency. Our agreement with them was that we would make up the difference, whatever the parking is. We've gotten from Todd, he's gotten the necessary approvals in interpretation of the trust that says that we don't need anybody's approval to put the parking in place.
The
So
park what?
to put that additional parking at Torch Bay Nature Preserve, we don't need anybody's approval to do it. It sits in there based on the fact that you can add additional parking in the terminology. And he went back to the Grand Traverse Land Conservancy, which is part of this agreement. And they told him if you want to put additional parking in there, you can do it. But we are going to cover our bases with Bert and handle things appropriately there. So the parking can go in. The question that we would have, if there's a question, if the road commission refuses to help us with our ability to get into the water, we keep the water rescue unit, but it will be primarily for Torch Bay or Torch Lake, because our guys, if they have trouble and they're sitting there trying to get out to save somebody, and it's pretty frustrating, I'm not sure we want to go through all of that. I've got to believe that we're going to be able to work out a deal with them. But if we can't, then the question is, do we spend money on the additional parking?
Well, the error is that we're not keeping people from the water.
I
That's
understand that.
wrong. That's a false statement.
Alan, I understand that. My comment to
Do you want me to
Antrim,
go to the commissioners? I'll talk to them.
no, I've
I'll
been
make
to
it real
the,
clear. It's almost a lie.
well,
That makes me angry because we don't keep people off of there.
I understand it, and, but just give me time to handle it. I believe that, and if not, then we'll have to go to probably the Antrim County and say, guys, the front page headline is going to be, our water rescue couldn't get there because you didn't let us out, because you wouldn't provide us the fire lane needed to get our equipment in the water appropriately. That will be the front page. And if somebody dies out there, I told Bert, if we don't have access, it's not on us. So there's a lot out there, but to your point, Alan, it's trying to get through things in an orderly fashion rather than, because I think we get further that way.
Well, yeah, oh yeah, I agree. I mean, they've got their point of view and they don't see it. But what I do like about the idea that we need making careful record of this is that we take care of our liability in that regard. Why didn't you rescue us?
Yep.
So,
All right, board. So what I'd like to do is I will make the changes. I will make a final set of copies, and they should be available to you sometime tomorrow. I'll try to get it done. There's not a lot to change.
It's very well presented. I want to say it was very nice,
Thank you.
very easy to follow.
If everyone is in agreement that with the changes, the board is ready to bring this forward at our board meeting, if everyone agrees, I'll cancel the meeting for Friday and Monday. We had 2 more meetings set up on February 4th at 1:30 and February 7th at 4:30, just to review the pages again.
You
make
think
sure-
Kathy would want to?
I
Probably
was gonna
not.
say the same thing. Does Kathy have any?
No.
Kathy.
When she left, she said
She had no,
How long's she gone till?
she should be
Thursday.
back this week.
yeah, Thursday, I think.
Well, I don't see a need for a meeting on Friday.
Yeah, I don't either.
Nothing else is going to change.
All right, well then I will cancel because I've got them out there on the website and I've got them posted. I will pull the meetings for February 4th and February 7th. All right, board?
Well, I was gonna say leave Monday on just in case, but what kind of questions would come up? I can't see anything.
She had the budget. She, I asked her to send me
I
her
asked her too.
thoughts and she didn't send me anything. So as far as I'm
Nope.
concerned, she had her chance. We didn't do it without her having the chance to look at it or to give me a comment. So at this point, any public comment? There's no public. Any board comment? If there's no board comment, I make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The meeting is adjourned at
5:57.
5:57. Hey, hour and a half.
No, what is this?
I got 5:57.
Oh, yeah.
Might be some